I knew the moment the mansion gates opened that Lucas' world was never meant for someone who looked like me. My palms were sweating inside my cheap purse, and every camera flash at the entrance felt like a warning. Servants lined the staircase while luxury cars filled the driveway behind us, and all I could think was how small I looked, stepping out beside him. Lucas smiled proudly, holding my hand as if none of this pressure existed, but his family watched from the doorway like judges waiting for a mistake. I heard his sister whisper something and laugh before we even reached the steps. His mother's smile was polite, but her eyes scanned my dress, my shoes, my hair, and I felt stripped bare. When I mispronounced the name of a painting hanging in their grand hallway, the room fell silent for half a second before quiet chuckles spread. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run, but instead I lowered my head and played the shy, overwhelmed girl they expected me to be. Lucas squeezed my hand, defending me, telling them I was just nervous, and I saw disappointment flash across their faces. They believed their billionaire heir had chosen a girl who did not belong, and as they walked ahead, already dismissing me, one thought stayed firm in my mind. They had no idea who I really was, and tonight, their performance had just begun. Welcome back to StoryVerse Vault, my beautiful, amazing Story Vault family. You all have been so supportive, and I promise to always try my best to give you the best stories as I learn and improve every day. If this is your first time coming across my video, do comment below where you are watching from. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story from our channel. Now let's get into today's story. Dinner inside the Sterling mansion unfolded like a performance stage to expose Emily's flaws. Crystal chandeliers reflected off silver cutlery arranged in confusing layers, and every move she made was watched closely. Lucas tried to keep conversation light, but his mother steered every topic toward wealth, etiquette, and high society events Emily clearly seemed unfamiliar with. Emily picked up the wrong fork, apologized shyly, and laughter traveled softly around the table. Lucas shot his sister a warning look, yet Victoria Sterling simply smiled, satisfied with the silent humiliation. A guest asked Emily about European art collections, and she answered honestly that she had never traveled outside her country. The room stiffened with surprise. To them, ignorance equaled inferiority. Lucas defended her again. A Marseillan character mattered more than money, but his uncle muttered that love fades when reality sets in. Emily kept her posture small, nodding politely, never reacting. But beneath lowered lashes, she watched everything. She noticed servants being scolded harshly. She saw executives whisper privately about company tensions, and she memorized every face that looked down on her. Later, Lucas walked her through the mansion halls, apologizing for his family's behavior. She smiled softly, reassuring him she understood. But once alone in the guest corridor, her expression shifted briefly. Calm replaced embarrassment, and her eyes sharpened with quiet calculation before the mask returned. The next morning, urgency changed everything. Lucas received a call about a crisis in Singapore requiring his immediate presence. Emily insisted he go, pretending she would be fine staying behind with his family for the weekend. He kissed her forehead, unaware how uncomfortable that decision would make her appear to others. The moment his car disappeared beyond the gates, Victoria Sterling's warmth vanished. Emily was escorted not to a luxury suite, but to a modest guest room near the staff quarters. The explanation was simple. Family rooms were reserved for appropriate guests. Emily thanked them politely, carrying her own suitcase while servants avoided eye contact. Lucas's sister filmed her struggling with luggage, pretending it was harmless fun. Emily smiled awkwardly, unaware of the recording, or at least appearing unaware. Later, Victoria asked Emily to help organize floral arrangements for an afternoon event, task normally assigned to hired staff. Emily agreed without complaint, earning smirks from watching relatives. But as she moved through service corridors, she listened carefully to conversations. She noticed tension among employees discussing delayed payments and management disputes. She quietly memorized door codes, office locations, and security patterns without raising suspicion. To everyone watching, she remained the naive outsider, desperate to fit in. But behind her polite nods, information was already being gathered piece by piece. By afternoon, humiliation became entertainment. A business partner's arrogant son arrived, immediately targeting Emily with condescending charm. He boasted about yachts, foreign investments, and luxury trips, expecting admiration. Emily responded with shy curiosity, asking simple questions that made her seem easily impressed. He laughed, convinced she was exactly the type who chased money. Victoria and her daughter observed quietly, satisfied with the unfolding narrative. Later, while serving drinks at the garden gathering, Emily overheard executives arguing behind a hedge about internal company power struggles. One mentioned Lucas being unprepared for leadership, another referenced financial decisions made secretly by his uncle. Emily pretended not to hear, focusing on delivering refreshments politely, but her mind cataloged every word. As sunset painted the mansion grounds, servants cleaned up while guests departed. Emily returned to her small guest room, closed the door, and finally allowed her expression to change. I looked at my reflection and dropped the nervous smile. They think I am harmless. They think I am blind. And that makes everything easier. Because the more they underestimate me, the less they will see what is coming next. Morning routines inside the Sterling mansion followed strict order, and Emily quickly became part of a system where she clearly ranked below everyone else. Victoria assigned her a seat at breakfast far from the main table, claiming it was simply more comfortable for informal family mornings. Relatives spoke business around her as if she were invisible, occasionally throwing polite but dismissive smiles in her direction. Lucas's sister replayed clips from the previous day on her phone, laughing quietly with cousins while pretending Emily could not hear. Emily kept eating slowly, nodding politely whenever someone addressed her, maintaining the fragile image of a woman trying desperately to fit into a world too big for her. But her eyes moved constantly, noting schedules, routines, and who entered restricted office areas without clearance. A senior executive arrived unexpectedly, whispering urgently with Lucas's uncle near the hallway leading to the private study. The conversation ended abruptly when they noticed Emily nearby, causing them to stiffen. She apologized shyly for overhearing and hurried away, reinforcing their belief she understood nothing important. Later, while helping a housekeeper carry linens, Emily gently asked about staff working conditions, and the woman hesitated before admitting recent salary delays had caused fear among employees. Emily listened quietly, offering sympathy, yet her attention sharpened at the mention of financial confusion within the company. By midday, Victoria instructed Emily to accompany her on a charity planning meeting, clearly intending to expose her lack of sophistication in front of elite guests. Emily accepted eagerly, playing the grateful future daughter-in-law role perfectly. But as she followed Victoria into the mansion's conference wing, she silently mapped security cameras and restricted doors in her memory. They believed she was trying to learn their world. In truth, she was learning their weaknesses. The charity planning meeting gathered influential donors, socialites, and corporate partners around a polished conference table overlooking manicured gardens. Victoria proudly introduced Emily with restrained politeness, clearly expecting embarrassment to follow. Emily greeted everyone nervously, stumbling slightly over formal greetings, earning indulgent smiles from attendees who assumed she was out of place. Discussion turned toward fundraising targets, international partnerships, and corporate responsibility programs. Emily innocently asked why certain overseas donations were routed through complicated channels instead of direct transfers. The room fell briefly silent before Victoria laughed off the question as confusion from someone unfamiliar with global business. But one executive exchanged a quick glance with Lucas's uncle, whose jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Emily quickly apologized, pretending she misunderstood financial matters, restoring the relaxed atmosphere. Yet the subtle reaction confirmed something important to her. Later, during a break, she wandered outside onto a balcony overlooking the driveway, pretending to admire the view while discreetly recording voice notes on her phone. I kept my tone casual, like a girl excited about luxury surroundings, but every detail I spoke was evidence. I noted suspicious reactions, coded donation routes, and internal power dynamics forming beneath the polished charity image. Footsteps behind her interrupted the recording, and Lucas's uncle appeared, smiling too warmly. He warned her gently that high-level business discussions could be confusing for outsiders. Emily apologized again, lowering her gaze. But as he walked away, his unease confirmed she was getting closer to something dangerous, and the game between hunter and prey had quietly begun. That evening, the mansion hosted an intimate cocktail gathering for key company stakeholders, and Emily was instructed to mingle politely without drawing attention. Guests moved through marble halls discussing investments, mergers, and future expansion plans while champagne flowed freely. Lucas's sister introduced Emily mockingly to several young heirs, joking about how refreshing it was to meet someone so simple. Emily laughed along awkwardly, appearing unaware of the insult while quietly scanning conversations around her. A drunken executive accidentally mentioned a delayed internal audit that had upset certain board members. Another warned him to keep quiet, glancing nervously toward Lucas's uncle across the room. Emily pretended to be distracted by decorative sculptures, allowing the conversation to continue unnoticed. Later, while searching for the restroom, she mistakenly opened a private office door and froze upon hearing raised voices inside. Lucas's uncle and two executives argued about missing funds, falsified transfers, and pressure to secure control before Lucas inherited full authority. Emily stepped back silently, heart pounding as she realized the scale of corruption unfolding within the company. I pressed myself against the wall outside, barely breathing. Every instinct told me this was bigger than internal politics. They weren't just mismanaging money, they were preparing to push Lucas out entirely. A servant passed by, forcing Emily to continue walking casually before suspicion arose. But the truth now weighed heavily in her mind, and the family that mocked her might soon face consequences none of them expected. Night settled over the Sterling estate, and silence replaced the day's social performances as Emily returned to her guest room. Moonlight slipped through curtains as she locked the door and finally dropped her naive posture. Her phone displayed encrypted messages waiting for updates, reminders of the mission that brought her into Lucas's life months earlier. She reviewed recorded notes, confirming connections between offshore accounts and internal leadership disputes. Every piece now pointed toward Lucas's uncle orchestrating financial manipulation to secure company control. Yet something unexpected complicated everything. Lucas himself appeared uninvolved, possibly even unaware of betrayal within his own family. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his last message, telling me he missed me already. For the first time since starting this operation, doubt crept in. What if exposing the truth destroyed the one person who had treated me with genuine kindness? But backing away now meant allowing corruption to continue unchecked. Emily closed her eyes, steadying her breathing, before sending a coded message confirming major developments. Mission progress acknowledged. Next phase required confirmation during the upcoming charity gala, where key players would gather publicly. She powered off the phone and returned to the nervous, humble persona expected of her. Tomorrow, the Sterling family would continue underestimating her, and soon the consequences of that mistake would begin unfolding in ways none of them could stop. The weekend inside the Sterling estate shifted as preparations intensified for the upcoming charity gala, the family's most public display of wealth and influence. Victoria moved through the mansion issuing rapid instructions to staff, ensuring every detail reflected perfection before international guests arrived. Emily was assigned minor decorative tasks again, reinforcing her unofficial role as someone tolerated rather than respected. Lucas remained overseas, calling briefly to reassure Emily that his meetings would end soon. She smiled warmly during the call, hiding the storm quietly forming beneath polite conversation. Victoria overheard part of their exchange and later reminded Emily that public appearances demanded the sophistication she still needed to learn. Emily apologized, promising to behave properly during the gala. Behind that submissive tone, however, she carefully followed staff members arranging private office deliveries connected to gala sponsors. One courier accidentally left documents unattended while speaking on the phone, allowing Emily to glimpse account summaries tied to shell companies she had previously flagged. Her pulse quickened. Evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Later, Lucas's sister cornered Emily near the staircase, mocking her upcoming gala appearance and suggesting she would embarrass the family in front of elite guests. Emily laughed nervously, claiming she hoped to stay unnoticed in the crowd. But internally, she knew the gala would not allow her to stay invisible any longer. The stage was nearly set, and powerful people were about to collide publicly. And once events started moving, there would be no reversing what followed. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Lucas struggled through exhausting negotiations while sensing distance in Emily's voice during their calls. He trusted her completely, unaware his own family dynamics were becoming dangerous territory. His business partner warned him about internal unrest within Sterling Group, mentioning board members questioning leadership stability. Lucas dismissed concerns, believing his uncle's experience kept operations steady, but unease lingered. Back at the mansion, Emily walked through service corridors carrying floral arrangements toward storage rooms when she overheard two junior accountants arguing. They mentioned unusual account transfers being rushed before the charity gala audit announcement. Emily accidentally dropped a vase, forcing them to notice her presence. She apologized repeatedly, acting flustered until they dismissed her as harmless. But their panic confirmed her suspicions. Later, Emily retreated briefly to a quiet garden corner and activated her secure communication line. I spoke softly, pretending to cry about family pressure in case anyone overheard, but every coded word delivered operational updates. Financial manipulation was accelerating. The gala would likely be their final move before consolidating power. Her handler instructed caution, reminding her extraction remained possible if risks increased. Emily ended the call, knowing she could no longer step away. Not now, not when the truth was so close, and not when Lucas unknowingly stood at the center of betrayal. 2 nights before the gala, the Sterling family hosted select board members for a private dinner, excluding Emily initially until Victoria insisted appearances required her presence. Emily entered wearing a simple dress again, reinforcing expectations she would remain socially insignificant. Conversation shifted toward succession planning, subtly hinting Lucas might lack necessary ruthlessness for corporate leadership. His uncle skillfully guided discussions, suggesting alternative leadership models without openly challenging Lucas. Emily quietly served herself food, pretending ignorance while absorbing every political maneuver. A board member privately joked that Lucas's emotional decisions could endanger profits, drawing laughter from several attendees. Emily felt anger tighten inside her chest but maintained her timid demeanor. Later, while retrieving her shawl from the hallway, she overheard Victoria arguing with Lucas's uncle about financial risks tied to recent company moves. Victoria worried public exposure could destroy their reputation, but the uncle assured her everything remained under control. Emily stepped away before being noticed, her understanding deepening. I leaned against the cold marble wall, realizing they were gambling with everything Lucas believed his family stood for. And none of them expected the quiet girl they mocked to be the one holding the evidence capable of destroying their entire plan. The gala was no longer just a social event. It was becoming a battlefield. The final gala rehearsal filled the mansion ballroom with lighting crews, event planners, and performers rehearsing for the massive event. Emily wandered carefully through preparations, memorizing entrances and exits, while technicians tested audio systems. Lucas's sister deliberately handed Emily a volunteer badge, claiming it suited her better than attending as honored guest. Emily accepted gratefully, pretending humiliation did not sting. Behind the scenes, she located restricted equipment areas where surveillance systems connected for live broadcasting coverage. Her handler's earlier instructions echoed in her mind about gathering final confirmation before authorities intervened. Emily carefully accessed backstage monitors while pretending to search for refreshments, capturing images linking company accounts to ongoing investigations. Footsteps suddenly approached, forcing her to quickly step aside as security personnel entered. She smiled nervously, claiming she was lost. They escorted her back toward guest areas, reinforcing the perception of harmless confusion. That night, Emily stood alone in the ballroom after rehearsals ended, staring at the grand stage where powerful figures would gather tomorrow. I looked at the empty hall and whispered to myself that once this started, lives would change forever. Love, trust, and loyalty were about to collide with truth in front of cameras and investors. And when the lights turned on tomorrow night, there would be no hiding from consequences. The day of the Sterling Charity Gala arrived with controlled chaos sweeping across the mansion from sunrise. Designers rushed through corridors carrying gowns, stylists set up temporary stations, and security teams coordinated guest arrivals for the televised event. Emily woke early in her modest guest room, rehearsing the timid smile everyone expected to see later that night. Victoria instructed staff to prepare luxury suites for international guests, deliberately overlooking Emily's accommodations once again. Lucas called briefly from the airport, promising he would land just hours before the gala began. His voice carried exhaustion, but also excitement about finally returning home. Emily reassured him everything was fine, careful not to reveal how tense the environment had become. After the call ended, Victoria entered unexpectedly, handing Emily a plain gown selected under the excuse that simplicity suited her personality. Emily thanked her politely, pretending gratitude while recognizing the deliberate attempt to keep her appearance unimpressive among glamorous attendees. Later, Emily assisted volunteers organizing gift packages for donors, quietly listening as executives discussed final investment announcements scheduled for the gala stage. One assistant nervously mentioned authorities requesting access to certain financial reports earlier that morning. The comment caused immediate silence among senior organizers before conversation shifted awkwardly. Emily kept working, folding ribbons and smiling shyly, yet inside her focus sharpened. Everything indicated events were reaching their breaking point. Tonight would force hidden truths into public view, and there would be no safe way out once everything unfolded. By evening, luxury vehicles lined the estate driveway as international guests stepped onto red carpets under flashing cameras. Reporters broadcast live coverage, praising Sterling Group's philanthropic achievements while capturing glamorous arrivals. Emily exited a staff entrance, wearing the simple gown provided, blending into background personnel rather than honored guests. Lucas arrived shortly after, greeted by applause as cameras followed his confident walk beside his mother. His eyes searched the crowd until he spotted Emily near the service entrance, offering her a reassuring smile that briefly softened her tension. But before he could approach, business partners pulled him away for interviews. Inside the ballroom, elite investors mingled while orchestras performed softly in the background. Emily circulated carefully, delivering assistance to guests while observing subtle panic spreading among certain executives. Lucas's uncle appeared tense, frequently checking his phone and whispering urgently with legal advisors. Emily recognized the signs. Pressure from external investigations was closing in. I moved through the crowd pretending to feel overwhelmed, but every second felt heavier. I knew forces larger than this family were about to enter the room, and when they did, no amount of money or influence would stop what followed. Across the ballroom, Lucas laughed with donors, unaware his family's empire stood on the edge of exposure. The countdown toward confrontation had begun. Midway through the gala, Victoria invited Lucas onto the stage to announce a major expansion initiative intended to boost company reputation. Applause filled the ballroom as cameras zoomed in on smiling executives standing behind him. Emily watched quietly from the side, noting how Lucas's uncle maintained forced composure despite visible anxiety. Lucas began thanking supporters and highlighting company achievements, his voice confident and sincere. Suddenly, movement near the ballroom entrance disrupted the celebratory mood. Security personnel hurried toward arriving officials, accompanied by government investigators displaying identification credentials. Whispers spread rapidly as guests noticed the unexpected arrival. Lucas faltered mid-speech, confusion crossing his face while Victoria signaled staff to control the situation. Mine investigators approached the stage calmly, requesting immediate cooperation regarding an ongoing financial investigation tied to Sterling Group operations. Silence replaced applause. Lucas's uncle attempted to intervene, claiming the event was private, but officials presented legal authorization requiring compliance. Guests murmured nervously as cameras continued broadcasting unfolding tension live. Emily stepped forward slowly from backstage, her demeanor completely transformed. I felt every eye turning toward me as confusion rippled across the room. There was no room left for pretending now. The shy, naive girl disappeared, replaced by calm authority. And in that moment, Lucas stared at me as if seeing a stranger for the first time. The lead investigator addressed the audience, explaining that months of inquiry linked company executives to illegal financial activities involving offshore accounts and manipulated transactions. Screens behind the stage displayed documentation connecting multiple senior figures to ongoing corruption cases. Lucas stepped back in disbelief as evidence unfolded publicly. Then came the final revelation. The investigator introduced Emily Carter as a financial crime analyst embedded undercover to gather internal information. Gasps echoed across the ballroom as Victoria's expression shifted from confusion to shock. Lucas's sister stared in horror, realizing the woman they mocked had been observing them all along. Lucas's uncle attempted to protest, but security officials restrained him as additional evidence appeared on screen. And Emily met Lucas's stunned gaze, unable to look away. I wanted to explain everything at once, but words refused to come. This was never supposed to hurt him personally. Yet seeing betrayal in his eyes felt heavier than exposing corruption. Investigators escorted implicated executives away, while guests struggled to process what they had witnessed. Lucas stood frozen as his family's reputation collapsed around him in real time. Emily remained motionless amid chaos, knowing the mission succeeded but unsure what remained of her personal life afterward. The gala that was meant to celebrate generosity had become the stage for one of the biggest corporate scandals in recent history, and the emotional consequences were only beginning. Silence lingered in the ballroom long after investigators escorted key executives away, leaving stunned guests whispering in disbelief. Media crews quickly shifted their focus from celebration to scandal coverage, broadcasting every emotional reaction unfolding live. Lucas stood frozen near the stage, struggling to comprehend how his trusted family structure collapsed within minutes. Emily remained nearby, unsure whether approaching him would ease or deepen the shock he was experiencing. Victoria demanded answers from remaining legal advisors, while desperately attempting damage control among fleeing donors. Lucas's sister, pale with humiliation, avoided cameras entirely. Realizing her earlier mockery now looked painfully foolish. Security teams cleared guests from the hall as law enforcement sealed company representatives for questioning. Emily finally stepped toward Lucas, her voice low as she tried to explain the investigation's necessity. He pulled back instinctively, confusion and betrayal clashing across his face. I watched his trust crumble, and guilt twisted in my chest. I never planned for him to become collateral damage. Lucas asked quietly how long she had been lying, and Emily admitted their entire relationship began as part of the assignment. The words struck him harder than public humiliation ever could. Without another word, Lucas walked away toward a private exit, leaving Emily standing alone amid flashing cameras and scattered decorations. The mission succeeded, but personal consequences were only beginning to unfold, and the emotional cost now threatened to outweigh professional victory. News coverage exploded overnight, transforming the Sterling scandal into global headlines questioning corporate ethics and elite accountability. Emily relocated temporarily to a secure facility while investigations progressed, officially removed from undercover status. Yet personal matters weighed heavier than professional debriefings. Lucas isolated himself inside a downtown penthouse, refusing interviews and ignoring calls from board members, scrambling to stabilize the company. Victoria attempted damage control through media statements, claiming ignorance of internal corruption. Employees feared layoffs as stock prices plummeted across international markets. Emily watched coverage from a secure briefing room, feeling increasingly detached from the chaos she helped unleash. Her handler congratulated her success, praising the operation's precision and outcome. But victory felt hollow. I stared at Lucas's televised statement where he apologized publicly to employees, taking responsibility despite personal innocence. He never blamed anyone directly, not even me. That silence hurt more than anger would have. Meanwhile, investigators continued arrest operations involving additional executives connected to hidden accounts. Corporate allies distanced themselves quickly, leaving the Sterling empire vulnerable. Emily requested temporary leave after final debriefing, claiming exhaustion from months undercover. Permission was granted, but emotional exhaustion followed her beyond official duty. Because outside investigation reports and corporate damage, a broken relationship now haunted every quiet moment. Days later, Emily returned discreetly to the Sterling estate to retrieve belongings left behind during the gala chaos. The once lively mansion felt hollow, with many staff members uncertain about their future employment. Servants who once avoided her now greeted her respectfully, aware she had exposed corruption affecting their livelihoods. Victoria confronted Emily in the hallway, her composed exterior cracked by stress and humiliation. She demanded to know whether Emily ever cared about Lucas or if everything was manipulation. Emily answered honestly, admitting genuine feelings developed unexpectedly during the mission. Victoria struggled between anger and reluctant gratitude for saving the company from deeper collapse. Upstairs, Emily packed quietly, memories of earlier humiliations now replaced with heavier emotional weight. And I folded clothes slowly, remembering how easy it had been to pretend weakness while hiding purpose. Now honesty felt far more painful than deception ever did. Lucas's sister appeared at the doorway, unable to meet Emily's eyes as she apologized awkwardly for earlier cruelty. Emily accepted the apology calmly, recognizing the experience changed everyone involved. As Emily prepared to leave, she paused briefly in the hallway where Lucas once defended her against criticism. The mansion that once symbolized success now represented fractured trust in uncertain futures. And somewhere beyond those walls, Lucas still wrestled with truths neither of them knew how to repair. That evening, Emily prepared to leave the city entirely, believing distance offered the only solution to unresolved emotions. Her handler arranged travel clearance, ensuring media attention would not follow her departure. Meanwhile, Lucas attended emergency board meetings, attempting to salvage company stability despite ongoing investigations. Executives pressured him to publicly distance himself from family members implicated in corruption. Lucas complied reluctantly, realizing leadership now demanded ruthless decisions he once resisted. Later, alone in his office overlooking city lights, he replayed memories of Emily's shy smiles and quiet support. I told myself everything between us was fake, but my chest tightened, remembering moments that felt painfully real. He wondered whether forgiveness was possible or simply weakness disguised as compassion. Across town, Emily packed her final belongings into a suitcase, preparing for departure before sunrise. She paused upon seeing Lucas's photograph on her phone, unsure whether deleting it would bring closure or regret. Ultimately, she powered off the device, unwilling to decide yet. Both of them stood on opposite sides of the same emotional crossroads, uncertain which path led forward. And as the night deepened, fate quietly prepared one final confrontation neither of them expected. Before dawn broke over the city, Emily checked out of her temporary apartment quietly, avoiding attention as arranged by her agency. A hired vehicle waited outside to take her directly to the airport under minimal exposure. She wore simple clothes again, blending easily with early morning commuters, unaware of the storm attached to her identity. News notifications still flooded her phone, but she ignored them, unwilling to relive the scandal dominating every headline. Meanwhile, Lucas remained inside the Sterling headquarters after working through the night, stabilizing investor confidence. His assistant hesitated before informing him Emily was scheduled to leave the country that morning. The information struck harder than expected. Lucas dismissed remaining staff and stared at the city skyline, while struggling with emotions he had tried to suppress since the gala. Anger still existed, but so did understanding. He remembered how she defended employees and treated people kindly, even when mocked. I realized my pride was about to cost me someone who never truly meant to hurt me. Lucas grabbed his coat without another thought, ignoring security warnings about media presence near the airport. Across town, Emily watched sunrise colors slowly stretch across buildings as her car approached departure terminals. She told herself leaving was the safest option for both of them, but deep inside, unresolved words remained heavy, and fate seemed unwilling to let either of them walk away so easily. Inside the airport, travelers moved calmly through security lines, unaware of the emotional storm about to unfold among them. Emily kept her head down, passport ready, determined to leave before doubts weakened her resolve. Television screens nearby replayed footage of the Sterling scandal, forcing her to relive painful moments she hoped to escape. Meanwhile, Lucas sped through traffic, ignoring multiple phone calls from board members demanding his immediate attention. Security escorts struggled to keep reporters from following his unexpected departure from headquarters. At the airport entrance, cameras quickly recognized him, but Lucas pushed past questions, focused solely on reaching Emily before she disappeared from his life. Emily checked in her luggage and moved toward departure gates, her heart feeling strangely heavier with each step forward. I told myself this mission ended and emotions should end with it, but memories refused to fade. Laughter during quiet dinners, late-night conversations, and moments where Lucas simply treated her as normal suddenly felt painfully real. Just as boarding announcements echoed through the terminal, a familiar voice called her name across the crowd. Emily froze instantly. Turning slowly, she saw Lucas standing breathless beyond the security barrier, eyes filled with urgency. Every instinct told her to keep walking, but her feet refused to move. Lucas rushed through security clearance with assistance from airport staff, recognizing the urgency in his request. Moments later, he reached Emily near the boarding area where passengers lined up quietly. Neither spoke at first, the silence filled with unresolved emotion. Lucas finally admitted that anger blinded him during the gala aftermath. He confessed betrayal hurt, but understanding the full situation changed his perspective. Emily listened quietly, unsure whether forgiveness was even possible. I looked at him and felt every defense crumble because part of me never stopped caring. Lucas explained that despite the deception, she ultimately saved thousands of employees from financial disaster. He admitted realizing leadership required accepting painful truths rather than hiding from them. Emily revealed she had planned to disappear completely to avoid complicating his future. Lucas shook his head, saying running away solved nothing. Passengers nearby pretended not to notice the emotional confrontation unfolding beside them. For a moment, everything else faded, but uncertainty still lingered between them. Trust, once broken, demanded more than apologies, and both understood rebuilding anything required difficult choices ahead. Final boarding announcements echoed across the terminal, forcing Emily to decide within seconds whether to leave or stay. Lucas stepped closer, his voice softer now, free from anger or accusation. He admitted he did not know how to repair what happened, but wanted the chance to try honestly. Emily hesitated, torn between professional discipline and personal longing she had tried to bury. I realized this was the moment where choosing safety meant losing something real forever. She asked Lucas whether he could truly accept how their relationship began. He answered truthfully that trust would take time, but walking away without trying felt worse. Airport staff called final boarding, urging remaining passengers forward. Emily looked once more at the departure gate, then back at Lucas, waiting anxiously. Slowly, she stepped away from the boarding line. Relief flashed across Lucas's face, though uncertainty remained about what came next. They walked together toward terminal exit without clear plans, only mutual understanding that unfinished emotions deserved resolution. Outside, morning sunlight now filled the city as news helicopters still circled corporate districts. The world continued judging their story through headlines and rumors. But for the first time since everything collapsed, both allowed themselves cautious hope. And though reconciliation remained uncertain, neither wanted their story to end in silence. Returning from the airport did not magically solve the damage left behind by scandal and betrayal. Lucas and Emily entered the city quietly, avoiding public attention while deciding what their next steps should look like. Neither pretended things were fixed, but both understood walking away would have been easier than facing consequences together. Lucas resumed leadership duties immediately, confronting board members demanding aggressive restructuring to restore investor trust. Emily, no longer bound by undercover protocols, faced uncertainty about her future role, both professionally and personally. News outlets still debated her identity, some praising her bravery, while others criticized deception used to expose corruption. Lucas invited her to meet privately later that evening, at a quiet restaurant far from media hotspots. She almost declined, worried renewed closeness would reopen wounds not fully healed, but curiosity and unresolved feelings pushed her to accept. Dinner remained tense at first, conversations limited to work updates and company recovery plans. Lucas admitted he spent sleepless nights questioning how his own family structure deteriorated without his awareness. Emily listened, recognizing the weight leadership now placed on his shoulders. I wanted to tell him everything would be fine, but honesty demanded admitting uncertainty instead of comfort. Lucas confessed that rebuilding trust within the company mirrored rebuilding trust between them. Both required patience and uncomfortable transparency. Emily admitted she still struggled separating professional instincts from personal vulnerability. By the end of the evening, where they agreed not to rush reconciliation, but to remain present in each other's lives honestly. It was not romantic closure. It was something more fragile, a decision to try again despite uncertainty. And sometimes, survival begins with choosing effort over fear. Days later, Lucas made a decision that surprised many within Sterling Group leadership. Instead of distancing himself from scandal quietly, he scheduled a company-wide address broadcast to employees across global branches. Executives advised cautious messaging, fearing further damage if handled poorly. Lucas ignored scripted speeches, choosing honesty instead. Emily watched the live broadcast from her apartment, uncertain how deeply he would address events involving his own family. Lucas openly acknowledged corruption within company leadership and apologized for failing to notice warning signs earlier. He promised structural reforms ensuring transparency and employee protections moving forward. But what caught Emily off guard was his unexpected acknowledgement of someone who helped expose the truth. Lucas publicly thanked investigators and an unnamed individual whose courage prevented deeper corporate collapse. He never spoke Emily's name, respecting confidentiality, yet she knew exactly who he meant. I felt my chest tighten because recognition without exposure showed he finally understood why I did what I did. Employees across branches responded positively, applauding leadership accountability rarely seen at corporate levels. Stock markets reacted cautiously, but internal morale began stabilizing. Lucas ended his speech emphasizing that integrity mattered more than protecting reputation. Emily turned off the television, realizing trust might actually be rebuilding slowly. And maybe, for the first time, they both stood on the same side rather than opposite ends of hidden agendas. Later that week, Emily received an unexpected invitation delivered through formal courier services. The envelope bore the Sterling family seal, immediately stirring mixed emotions. Inside, Victoria Sterling requested Emily's presence at the mansion for a private meeting. Emily hesitated, remembering humiliation she endured under that roof. Part of her wanted to ignore the request entirely, but unresolved matters often demanded confrontation rather than avoidance. Upon arrival, mansion gates opened quietly, lacking previous spectacle or arrogance. Inside, fewer staff members worked due to ongoing restructuring, leaving corridors strangely subdued. Victoria greeted Emily personally in the foyer, her posture noticeably less rigid than before. She invited Emily to tea, acknowledging tension between them deserved resolution. Victoria admitted arrogance once blinded her judgment, assuming wealth defined worth. Emily listened carefully, surprised by unexpected humility. I never imagined hearing apology from the woman who once treated me like embarrassment. Victoria confessed that despite humiliation, Emily ultimately protected their family legacy from complete ruin. She admitted Lucas spoke highly of Emily's character, despite everything. Emily accepted the apology calmly, explaining her actions targeted corruption, not personal destruction. Conversation ended with cautious mutual respect, replacing hostility. As Emily left, she sensed profound changes inside the mansion itself. Power structures shifted, pride softened, and the place that once rejected her now seemed uncertain how to treat her at all. That evening, Emily met Lucas again, this time at a quiet park overlooking the city skyline, where their relationship first felt natural months earlier. Children played nearby while evening lights slowly illuminated skyscrapers in the distance. Lucas admitted his mother informed him about their meeting earlier that day. Emily described the unexpected apology, still surprised by the change in tone. Lucas smiled faintly, saying crisis forces people to reevaluate priorities. They walked slowly along the path, conversation lighter than before, but still cautious. I realized something inside me finally relaxed because honesty replaced secrets between us now. Lucas admitted rebuilding company stability would take months, possibly years. Emily shared that returning to field investigations no longer appealed after everything they experienced. They stopped near a quiet overlook where city lights shimmered below. Lucas asked whether she could imagine a future where their relationship existed without lies or hidden missions. Emily hesitated briefly, remembering everything they survived. Then she answered honestly that future depended on continued honesty from both sides. Lucas nodded, accepting the challenge ahead rather than promising unrealistic perfection. Neither rushed declarations of love. Instead, they chose something steadier, a commitment to move forward carefully without masks. And as night settled over the city, both understood their story was not ending. It was preparing for its final chapter. Months passed, and the Sterling Empire slowly stabilized under Lucas's leadership as investigations concluded and restructuring plans took effect. Several executives faced prosecution, while new compliance systems reshaped company operations across international branches. Public perception gradually shifted from scandal toward cautious respect for leadership transparency. Emily transitioned fully out of undercover assignments, choosing consulting work that allowed a quieter, safer lifestyle. Her relationship with Lucas grew steadily, built now on honesty rather than deception. Yet final emotional closure still lingered unresolved between their two worlds. One afternoon, Lucas invited Emily to attend a private company ceremony honoring employees who remained loyal during the crisis. She hesitated, uncertain whether returning publicly to the Sterling spotlight felt appropriate. Lucas assured her attendance would remain low profile, focused on gratitude rather than publicity. Inside company headquarters, employees applauded leadership changes, restoring stability after months of uncertainty. Unexpectedly, Lucas invited Emily onto the stage near the ceremony's conclusion. She froze briefly, surprised by the gesture. I felt panic rising because public attention was the one thing I wanted to avoid after everything. Lucas thanked employees again before turning toward Emily, acknowledging her bravery privately while keeping sensitive details confidential. Applause filled the hall as staff recognized her contribution despite limited information. Emily nodded politely, emotions caught between embarrassment and relief. As ceremony ended, employees approached expressing gratitude for protecting their jobs and futures. Emily realized the mission she once saw as routine work had changed real lives, and perhaps personal sacrifices sometimes carried unexpected purpose beyond professional duty. Later that evening, Lucas invited Emily to dinner at the Sterling mansion, promising a quieter atmosphere than past encounters. Upon arrival, Emily noticed subtle differences inside the estate. Staff greeted her respectfully, no longer treating her as outsider or inconvenience. Victoria welcomed her warmly, thanking Emily again for helping protect the family legacy despite painful circumstances. Dinner conversations felt calmer, absent of judgment or hidden agendas that once dominated gatherings. Lucas' sister even apologized openly for previous cruelty, admitting embarrassment over her own behavior. Emily accepted apologies with grace. Understanding crisis forced everyone to confront uncomfortable truths. After dinner, Lucas asked Emily to walk with him through the garden, where their story first began publicly. Her soft evening lights illuminated pathways as distant city sounds faded into peaceful quiet. Lucas stopped near a fountain, visibly nervous despite confident demeanor, usually guiding business decisions. I sensed something important was coming, and my heartbeat quickened instantly. Lucas admitted the past year changed his understanding of loyalty, trust, and love. He said losing Emily once taught him how much her presence mattered beyond appearances or circumstances. Then unexpectedly, he knelt, holding a small ring catching garden lights. Guests watching discreetly from terrace gasped quietly. Lucas asked Emily to marry him again, this time without secrets between them. Emily stood speechless, memories flashing from deception to truth, from conflict to reconciliation. Finally, she smiled through tears and accepted, knowing future challenges remained, but trust now stood stronger. The Sterling mansion that once symbolized rejection now witnessed acceptance instead. News of their engagement spread quickly despite efforts to maintain privacy, drawing mixed public reactions shaped by past controversy. Some criticized Emily's undercover involvement, while others praised resilience overcoming deception and scandal. Lucas ignored online debates, focusing instead on preparing the company for long-term recovery. Emily adjusted to public attention carefully, determined not to lose personal identity within corporate expectations. Wedding planning remained deliberately modest compared to extravagant Sterling traditions. Victoria surprisingly supported simpler arrangements, acknowledging excessive displays once blinded family priorities. Meanwhile, Emily continued consulting work, helping organizations strengthen ethical financial practices internationally. I promised myself never to hide behind false identities again, no matter how difficult honesty became. Lucas admired her determination to maintain independence beyond marriage. Their partnership evolved into balance between personal love and professional respect. Friends and former colleagues expressed surprise seeing Emily choose stability after years of high-risk assignments. But peace felt earned rather than accidental. And as wedding preparations moved forward, both understood their relationship survived tests stronger than public opinion or social pressure, because truth, once revealed, leaves little room for illusions. Weeks later, Emily walked confidently through Sterling mansion doors once more, no longer pretending to be naive or powerless. Staff greeted her warmly, recognizing the transformation from underestimated outsider to respected future family member. Victoria welcomed her with genuine warmth, a stark contrast to their first meeting months earlier. Lucas joined her at the entrance, smiling proudly as family gathered for pre-wedding dinner preparations. I looked around and remembered how small I once felt standing in the same hall pretending to belong. Now nothing needed pretending. Conversations flowed comfortably as relatives discussed future plans rather than judging appearances. Lucas squeezed Emily's hand gently, reminding her how far they both traveled emotionally. The mansion still carried memories of humiliation and conflict, but it also symbolized growth and redemption. As dinner preparations began, Emily excused herself briefly, stepping onto balcony overlooking estate gardens below. She reflected on undercover missions, deception, heartbreak, and unexpected love shaping her journey. Lucas joined her quietly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders as evening breeze softened city noise. Together they watched sunset colors fade beyond mansion walls. And though challenges surely awaited beyond this peaceful moment, both knew they faced them side by side now. Their story, born from deception, survived truth and emerged stronger than either expected. Life rarely followed simple scripts, but sometimes after chaos settles, second chances truly deserve acceptance. Before we close today's story, make sure you subscribe to StoryVerse Vault, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments about the moment that touched you most. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next emotional journey, and stay connected with our growing story family for more unforgettable stories every week.